Good afternoon, families and Rochester City School District students. My name is Dr. Carlos M. Cotto Jr., and I'm the Executive Director of Health, PE, and Athletics for the Rochester City School District. And what we have for you today is a presentation that we titled The Journey of a Scholar Athlete. What we'll be providing you all is an overview on the NCAA Clearinghouse or Eligibility Center and some information, some key information for our student athletes within our Rochester community to start to plan their goals and dreams as moving on from high school to college, Division I, Division II, and Division III programs. Along with that, we have some information from an NCAA scout, and then we'll be closing out this presentation with some strong information in that of our former student athletes from within this community as a whole. The one thing I want to emphasize to our families and our students who are listening, the key to your success is the academic piece. So as you listen to this presentation, please stay focused on those particular areas. I think we are facing some challenging times, in the country as a whole with COVID, and more so now than ever, the focus on that academic piece as we're home working remotely is extremely important. And I steal this phrase from Miss Sisms, if you don't hit the books, you don't get the looks. And I think as you go through this presentation today, you're going to get a strong understanding of the importance of all these particular elements to really fulfill your dreams and goals. I now want to turn it over to Brett Crandall, who's a counselor at East High School, who will then introduce our NCAA Eligibility Center, London Booker.
Thank you, Dr. Cotto. My name is Brett Crandall, and I am a school counselor at East High School. And I've been here for 15 years, and part of my responsibilities at East is to work with the student athletes to help them so that they can get academically eligible to be able to participate in sports in college. And it is my great pleasure that I have Mr. London Booker, who is with me this year as my intern. And this work is near and dear to his heart as he attended elementary school and middle school here in the city, and then transferred to Gates Chili when he was in 10th grade so that he could actually play lacrosse. He was a recruited athlete and played Division II, NCAA Division II on scholarship at Roberts Wesleyan College. Graduated from there and now heads up the Rocky 6 lacrosse program in the city, and has a heart and desire to see more students in the city attend college and participate in sports. So let's give him our undivided attention. It is a pleasure to introduce to you Mr. London Booker.
Thank you, Mr. Crandall. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Perfect. All right, so we're going to begin our presentation by just talking about the roadmap to the NCAA Initial Eligibility Center. So this can be tough for a lot of families in our district, but we really want to be able to ease this process and hopefully make athletics and higher education possible for our families. All right, our overview, just a quick breakdown of what we're going to be talking about today. So just the NCAA Eligibility Center, what eligibility means, this idea of core course, grade, GPA, and whatnot. And then I have an example for you all today, and then some frequently asked questions, as well as what the term amateurism means. All right, so what is the NCAA Eligibility Center? It's a lot of different things. It's also known or referred to as the NCAA Eligibility Clearinghouse. Some of you may have heard that term before, but now it is officially taking the mantle of Eligibility Center. But it's responsible for certifying those athletes who want to come and play sports at the D1 and D2 level. And we'll talk about the specifics as we go on throughout the presentation. But because there are so many different moving parts within the NCAA, it's important to be mindful, right? With academic certification, the reviews, high school reviews, there's a lot of different moving parts within the NCAA. So it's important to stay on top all of the inner workings that go on within it. So it begins with this idea. There are two types of accounts. When you go to the website and you say, okay, I was told to go here, the first thing you do is you go on the website and they're going to tell you the two types of accounts that you can have. There's a certification account and then there's a profile page. It's important to note that the profile page is free. And then while also looking at the profile page, it is typically common for Division III athletes, as well as Division I and II. But when you look at the second type of account, the certification account, it is essentially required for our CSD athletes who plan on playing Division I or Division II. Also, one thing to note is their fee. So you do see a fee there, especially with international, but the NCAA asks that anybody looking to create an account for D1 and D2 that you pay a $90 fee. Luckily for our athletes, the NCAA and our district have partnered to come to the understanding that over 85% of our population receive free and reduced lunch. Therefore, they have worked it out that our athletes actually get a waiver. So when you go in and you click that link, if you attend an RCSD school, you won't actually have to pay that $90 when you sign up. So that's very, very crucial. But also keep in mind, if you just want to start one, it is free to do so. But if you plan on transferring over that account, it is a waiver that we are provided. So to break down this idea of how the Eligibility Center works, its importance, I wanted to look at the grade levels and how it can be broken down by grade level. And this is really, really key because it seems like our population and in the district that we work in, we start off playing youth sports really young, but the continuation of that doesn't necessarily happen. We have athletes fall out and they can't stay on that track of continuing that sport through college athletics. So if we can jump in and give you a roadmap to how it works in high school particularly, we can better serve those populations. So the plan, of course, starting in 9th grade, you want to get that plan going, come up with your idea, what you're going to do. And the NCAA says, yes, in 9th grade, go ahead, make that profile page. It's free. It means you're serious about playing college sports, and this is just the beginning. And then as you begin to progress through that year, you move into 10th grade, and it says at the end of 10th grade, you can begin to talk with your counselor. My hope is that you're having those conversations prior to then. So those conversations can be had throughout the year. It can be had throughout the 9th grade year as well. But at the end of that year, you can connect with your high school to upload your official transcript. And official and unofficial can have different terms, but basically your transcript is just a list of your high school progress as you've collected credits going from 8th to 9th to 10th grade. So they upload that official transcript as of your sophomore year. And then transferring into grade 11, this is when you officially continue to register. So important things in 11th grade are those academic tests, right? Where we talk about the ACT and the SAT that the NCAA require of all of its athletes to take in order to be an actual participant. And that can be done through College Board. So when it says, upload and give them access to those scores, College Board typically, those are shared through College Board. So you just use that code and you can upload those scores. You can send SAT scores anywhere. And that's just an important code that you're going to need in order to do that. And then last but not least, looking at graduating, because that is the key. In order to get to a higher institution, you need to graduate. It is a must. And for that to happen, there are a few steps that happen in your 12th grade year that ensure that all of that happens. So mind you, your school counselor is crucial during all of this time. So yes, it's like, okay, this is a 4-year span, but conversations are had, different stops on your journey are had throughout this entire time in terms of uploading a final transcript, requesting your final amateurization. All of that continues to happen throughout all 4 years of high school. And what I would like to add is, although you do not see grade 8 on this list for the NCAA, 8th grade is truly, truly important. Working here at East, I have found that even 8th graders can leave 8th grade, transitioning into 9th grade with almost 3 to 4 credits, which is powerful in terms of the road to 22, which is what we will discuss a little bit as we continue on. So looking at the rules, right? Eligible, what does it mean? How does it work? To be an athlete for an NCAA Division I or II school, you have to follow their eligible rules. Are you eligible to play? Can you play? And the big thing about those is what you have to do that, right? Can I play? Can I practice? Can I compete? Can I receive an athletic scholarship? If you follow all of their rules, the answer will be yes. But it's also important to recognize that those rules change for D1, they change for D2, and they change for D3. So although they may be competitive institutions, whether you're D1, D2, or D3, the rules and requirements change from level to level. So it's important to be mindful of what those are. So speaking directly to Division I, what I have here is a quick roadmap and an outline of what those requirements are. So initially they begin with the 16 core courses. You need those. It's essential. You got to have them. Those 16 core courses that you take throughout your high school career. And if you look to the right in the figure, you'll see a few examples of what they mean. So these are, of course, are taken between 8th and 12th grade. Like I mentioned before, 8th grade can be very crucial depending on whatever path you're trying to take. So a number of these credits can be taken care of starting as early as 8th grade. And it's also important to be mindful that when it says must be taught at or above high school level, it's the equivalent of Algebra 2 versus Math is Fun, right? If you take a Math is Fun course, it may not be held at the same standards of an Algebra 2 or a Trig or a Geo. So it's important to look at that. And when we talk further on what those classes are, right? Hopefully those classes are classes that propel you towards being prepared for a higher institution. All right, so looking at our New York State high school graduation, I brought this up because I wanted to make it very clear that the state that we live in currently is essentially setting up our athletes for success when it comes to NCAA eligibility, right? So we have this road to 22, having those 22 credits and being successful, because we know that in New York State, we need our 22 credits to graduate. Well, if this is the breakdown, in English, we need 4 credits. In social studies, we need 4 credits. In science, we need 3. In math, we need 3. When you look back and you say, well, how many does the NCAA require that I have? Well, for D1, you need 4 credits of high school English. That's already checked off the list by the time you graduate. So if you just follow the plan, essentially that the NCAA has, that New York State has laid out for its school districts, you should be just fine in terms of success and being eligible to play at the D1 or D2 level. So when talking about the Course GPA, this is an additional piece that is very, very important when talking about my eligibility and can I play and when can I play. For high school specifically, each high school is a part of the NCAA's, has a little spot where you can go look up your school and see if all of their classes that you could possibly take at that high school are approved, because classes can either be approved, archived, they can be old classes, because old classes can be taken out and no longer taught anymore. And then classes can also be denied. So it's important to know whether or not your class is eligible for, the NCAA. So looking at these, I kind of have a breakdown of how that works. Your core classes, of course, are classes like, your English, your science, your social studies, those core courses that we talked about that you need 16 of in order to play Division I or Division II. But when looking at those grades, what grades you get matter, because the calculation of that GPA that you have to have, that we're going to talk about in our next slide, are important. A's and B's are great because you get more points. If you're in honors, that's even better because they are worth more. So you really want to stray away from the C's and D's because it can make it more difficult on increasing that GPA in those core classes. But moving into our example, I have one of my my past players. So shout out to Mr. Crandall for teaching me the ways of calculating a core GPA by hand. I know me personally, I have gone the route of using an Excel sheet and working with the computer and letting the computer do the math. But if you cannot see here, it is our typical breakdown. You see English, you see year 4, so it says 1, 2, 3, 4 at the top left, and then it has English 1, 2, 3, and 4. This gentleman in English 1, which would have been his freshman year, didn't necessarily do the best. He got a D in English 1, and so that left him with 1 point. His sophomore year, he got a D in English 2, and then his junior year, his third year, because this student was actually a sophomore last year, was impacted due to COVID. And so we all know that COVID has impacted our way of life tremendously, and the NCAA has been mindful of that. But unfortunately, they've done that in a way that may hinder certain athletes. So depending on whether or not your transcript is an ideal one that has A's and B's, where you get 4 points for an A, 3 points for a B, COVID said, because a majority of districts across the country are just considering anything from the 2019-2020 school year to be a pass, a fail, a pass with distinction, they don't necessarily care, unfortunately, to say the least. They don't necessarily care. So what they said was, we will give you 2.3 points for every P you get. So if you get a P, we will give you 2.3 points. And so that can hurt a scholar athlete who's like, well, if not for COVID, I would have had 4 points because I would have gotten an A in that class. But unfortunately, due to COVID and the situation we are in now, you can see how this student's GPA, core GPA, was potentially impacted by COVID and having P's instead of grades that may have been higher quality point receiving. And if you look at the bottom, you just see a quick calculation of what we did. And so if you can see the highlighted stuff are classes that he will potentially take. So Mr. Crandall was really good at giving me the opportunity to show that you can show them what they're at now, but while also showing what they need to do in order to be successful when the time comes for them to actually complete the eligibility center. So one more time to talk about important test scores, ACT, SAT, tests that you can't necessarily overcome, right? There are tests that the NCAA require you to take. And unfortunately, those scores can be difficult. If you are anything like me, I am not a good test taker. I do not test well, never have tested well. And this example here kind of reflects my experience. At the top, you see SuperScore, SAT SuperScore. This scholar here took the SAT twice. And so what the NCAA allows in most colleges for their admission, if you take the SAT twice, depending on what scores you got on certain parts, they will allow you to take the best score from each part and put it together. And that'll allow for your SuperScore, the best score that you had all together, to get you into those institutions. And I was one who a SuperScore definitely benefited from that. Additionally, the NCAA has this piece where they of course like to correlate the ACT, the SAT, and the core GPA. All of those are crucial, and they consider it the sliding scale. So if you see a little orange piece down at the bottom, that's considered an academic redshirt, right? So if you have anything below a 2.3, you will be considered an academic redshirt, which means you will be a partial qualifier for the NCAA Division I. So a Division I athlete who wants to play, if you have a 2.0, they already consider you to be an academic redshirt. But in order to even practice, right, as an academic redshirt, you have to have an 1100 on your SAT. And then you also have you can have an 86 on your ACT. So it can be extremely tough. You can either have a high GPA and a lower required SAT score, or you can have a lower GPA and a higher required SAT score. And that's what they mean. That's what they mean by when they say sliding scale. And last but not least, a few terms. Qualifier, which they mean full qualifier. You can do everything. You've met all the requirements, right? 16 core, 2.3 GPA or above, and you graduate. Academic redshirt means you graduated, you got your 16 core, but you're below, a 2.3. And then last but not least, a non-qualifier who doesn't qualify at all. NCAA Division II, I can go through relatively quickly because there are not too many things that are different, except when looking at Division II, right? All of the expectations are relatively the same. However, the core course requirements are a little different. They only require 3 years of English and then 2 years of math. So it's important to note that. And so this is just for a Division II school. And like Division I, you have your sliding scale as well, where at a Division II school, if you want to be a partial qualifier, right, you have a 2.0 GPA, you would have to have a 900 SAT score, right? So that for some can be a little more realistic. And so it's important to realize, just like with the NCAA Division I, you have to have a 2.3. With Division II, you have to have at least a 2.2. And then just a quick piece to understand, qualifier is that, partial qualifier is this, and non-qualifiers, essentially anything other. It's important to realize that, yes, the NCAA has tons of moving pieces, but that can all be changed depending on certain circumstances. A few pieces that I'd like to add are just the Division III and junior college opportunities, right? Division III and junior college athletes do not need to complete the NCAA Eligibility Center. However, it can definitely benefit you in a number of ways. Moving towards the types of schools and governing associations, there's the NCAA D1, D2, D3. There's the NJCAA, so the junior college, but junior colleges have a D1, D2, and D3. And then there's also a National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, which is the NAIA. So if you're really chasing college sports, there should be a fit for you somewhere. Amateurism is important. When filling out the eligibility center, it hits on a number of different pieces. But some of those pieces are, have you ever been paid to play? Which is very key and very important. So be wary of those questions when you're going and you're filling these out, because you might end up similar to Zion in the situation he is in now. And there's an asterisk next to amateurism because college athletes one day may be paid for their likeness. And just to wrap up our slides, I have a few questions that are frequently asked. So, can you take courses in 8th grade? The answer is yes. They go onto your transcript, and it's important that you make sure that they are identified and are listed under the approved courses for the NCAA. Multiple high schools. We have kids who transfer from district to district, from charter school to public school. It's important that those grades follow along with you and those transcripts are sent, because individual schools will need to send certain transcripts. So that's important to be mindful of. And then last but not least, students with disabilities. The NCAA does recognize students with disabilities, and it's important to be aware of the different nuances that must be acknowledged when looking at those. So if you have a disability, if you have a learning disability, it's important to make them aware of that, because it modifies your requirements for eligibility. And then last but not least, because this is going to be presented to our families, I've placed links in which you can go to click and get additional information on this presentation. So thank you all for listening. And one thing I'd like to add, if you take anything from this presentation, when you are going through 8th through 12th grade, A's and B's is what it is going to take to make this process simple. Getting A's and B's on your transcripts everywhere will make it a seamless transition from high school to college athletics. Mr. Crandall.
Okay, London, I want to thank you for that presentation, and I want to share with all of you listening that we are recording this. There's a lot of information that London just provided, so we will be recording and then sharing it across the district. We're also live streaming, so I mean, if you're out there on the live stream and you're chatting, if we can answer your questions towards the end, we will do so. But London, thanks again for the presentation. Brett, thank you for the introduction. I'm going to transition now over to Kayla Gause, who's an NCAA scout here in our community. I mean, no different than a London and also a Brett. The work that they do in this community to serve our students is endless. These are true leaders and mentors within our community as a whole. I would share that Kayla Gause is not only a coach, but a mentor, a trainer. He does quite a bit in our community. So just for sake of time, I'm gonna now transition it over to Kayla Gause. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Cotto and everyone on the panel. It's an honor to be here with you all. I'm very proud to follow up and share a little bit about what it takes to get recruited, as not just a D1 athlete, but as an athlete, in addition to what Mr. Booker just shared. Yes, 2013, I became certified as an NCAA scout for student athletes for various colleges that would allow me to look for athletes that would qualify. And since then, I've sort of come up with slides to help students in our area become successful and work towards their dreams. So the first thing is being identified early, and those points that Mr. Booker said about getting those credits in the 8th and 9th grade as early as possible will help once you are identified. But it is a fact that 85% of all recruits are identified at least by their sophomore year. And that's not just D1. I mean, you have D2 and D3, they're all watching as well. So with that in mind, I want to share with you start off with sharing the estimated probability of competing in high school sports. And I only put a few sports up here, but it's the same thing for all of them. So say you're a high school basketball player. There's almost about 500,000 in the country that play high school basketball. But by the time you are seniors, you can see there's probably about 157,000 seniors. And the positions available between 1, 2, and 3, those divisions, are probably about 4,500. So you got this many, 157,000 seniors trying to get this many spots that might be available, if depending on the program, right? After that, your dream is to potentially probably get drafted. We got some NBA prospects out of Rochester coming up this year. Quentin Rose, Anthony Lamb, maybe Isaiah Stewart, but the funny thing is that on the average, only about 44 of those out of that 4,500, as they cycle through college, get drafted, have a chance to get drafted. Okay, so I just want to put some numbers into perspective. And these are some athletes from around the Rochester area that have gone through this journey already. Daisha Fair, top left. She went to Edison. She's a Rochester City School District graduate, and I'm sure she'll have an opportunity to go to the WNBA, but she first had to go through that same process that Mr. Booker just shared with you. Also, Cito Culver, Quentin Rose, who Bishop Kearney I just talked about, and my nephew, his name is Quentin Gause. He went to Bishop Kearney as well. All of these four, in addition to many more, some of the people that are even on the panel here that have gone and had successful collegiate careers. But Daisha Fair, she made it to UB on a scholarship. Cito Culver, he just signed a contract with the Yankees in baseball a month ago. Quentin Rose, he's probably headed into the draft this year. And of course, Quentin Gause, he made his dream of becoming a NFL prospect player. But one thing that I want to talk about with Quentin is that he also was on a 50, what is it called? A 501, what is it called? Help me out. I can't.
504.
He was on a 504 plan. So he had a learning disability going into college. He was able to get some assistance at D1 Rutgers as well to help him through that process, which, you know, he had 3 or 4 semesters where he had a 4.0 GPA because he took advantage of those things. So don't feel like if you have that learning disability that, you know, you want to shy away from it. You definitely want to embrace it, and the school will actually help you along the way. So I want to talk to you about the steps from my experience in getting recruited. And again, this is coming from my experience, but also what I've learned since 2013 in dealing with the NCAA. First of all, that was a great presentation, London, and we're going to reiterate some of those points as we talk. The first thing is you have to hit the books. That's got to be, you know, as you enter 9th grade, that's got to be one of the biggest things that you do. It's the most important thing during this journey. All right, school is the #1 priority in all things, and it must be the #1 priority in your future career. You want to take the right classes, and the NCAA provides a list of approved courses. So make sure you have communication with your counselors right off the bat. Make sure you let your counselors know you are trying to become an athlete, so they can keep that as they fill your transcripts up. They know what classes to get you, and you guys can work together and do all of that. All right. One thing London pointed out is you need to register with the NCAA Eligibility Center. And I encourage everyone to do that as early as possible. You can create a profile as early as your freshman year, but you want to have it done going into your junior year. That is when the most people are going to be getting it done at the same time at around that time. You want to have it done somewhere between your freshman and the end of your junior year, right? The earlier you have it done, I think provides sort of like a guardrail for you to sort of give you some structure as to what you need as you go. Check in with that with the Clearinghouse Center and make sure you're on the right track, okay? He also said, take your SAT and take your ACT. And if you are a person that struggles with testing and if you just need additional support, I'm sure the district has study courses for SAT and ACT tests as well. This year and last year, I think at the end, I think those were exempt. So there's some modifications. I think maybe Brett or Carlos, you could speak to those when we get done as to what the COVID years are doing for kids if you're in high school now. Okay. What my biggest thing is, in order to decide what schools you want to attend, you got to create 3 types of lists. All right. First, you want to create a wish list of schools that you just like. For whatever reason, you might like their colors. You might have just liked them as a kid. You like them because they're in a particular state, right? Your dream schools, right? Start with that. I would try to get 5 to 10 of those. Okay. Your second list should be schools that pertain to your career, your future career interests. Okay. Because you want to match those up, right? You want to look at them and you say, okay, well, they have law, they have, whatever career you might be interested in, communications, sports, business classes. So you want to find schools that have your sport and the courses that you want to take. All right. And then from that, the third list will be something that you have running throughout your high school career. Once you become a junior, you start hearing from the colleges. That's the schools that show mutual interest in you, from either you visiting or from you, doing well academically, whatever the reason is, right? So you want to make sure from those 3 lists, those will be the lists that you you prepare to do the next strategy, the next thing that you want to do, right? Which is, I'm going to visit these schools. Okay. So you find a school that is interested in you. You want to be able to visit them, and you want to talk to the students at the school to see how it is. And I got an actual slide about visiting later. We'll get to that in a moment. But before we get to that, the last thing is create a resume. You know, that's very important. It's normally a requirement on most collegiate applications, some type of bio or something. But this will let the coaches know the academics at the school. They'll let them know that you know who you are, a little bit about yourself, your accomplishments, what you've done in your high school. Even include, we had a kid this year, they wanted to know if he did any community events as well, if he had actually done any. And so he had to go and actually put that in there. It depends on the school. They will ask you, right? But make sure you talk to your counselor about it and go from there. So these are things that you want to be prepared for. All right. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. All right. These are some athletes that I have here that are from Rochester that have gone on, again, in addition to some of the people on the panel that have went through this process. Okay. So I just want to share those with you a little bit. And then the next thing, from that list of that you have compiled, those 3 lists, right? You want to attend the camps and clinics of the schools on your wish list, right? The best way to see yourself playing for the school is to go to the school and visit. All right. You want to meet the coaching staff, the school, make sure it's not too big, right? Make contact, right? Get on the mailing list. You can do that right from, you know, your own cell phone, right from, you can contact the school, talk to the counselors. You can get that information also from the Clearinghouse, NCAA, right? Get on the mailing list so that they're sending you information. Get on their radar, okay? Do your homework and research the schools in detail. How do you do that? Well, you got to understand what your 5-year plan is. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? You see yourself in grad school? Do you see yourself working? Whatever it is you see, you got to make sure that's part of the research. That's part of it, because when you do your research, you want to be realistic about yourself in the schools you're considering. All right. This is not time to see the school that you're blindly in love with. Okay. You want to make sure that it's a match for the both of you. Right. Your family is very important. Talk to your family about the process. This should be something that has been a part of the whole entire process throughout high school as well. All right. But sometimes you lose sight of the fact that they are in this with you, and you sort of get selfish sometimes. You're not sure, you might want to get away, you know, you're not, but the reality of getting away is, well, you got to get back home on break. So you got to figure all that out. That's why you want to keep the family in contact with you throughout the whole time. Also, your school family. Talk with your coaches, get their insights and input, lean on them for direction and guidance, and most of all, support, right? Then I want to share with you what the college visits sort of look like, right? So what a lot of people don't even know is that any visit to a college campus by a college-bound student athlete or his or her parents could potentially be paid for as an official visit when they're a senior, okay? Visits paid for by college-bound student athletes are called official visits. All right. You are allowed 5 total official visits to a D1 or D2, basically a athletic scholarship program. Right. Official visits are not allowed during dead periods. So another thing that the Clearinghouse will show you is the calendar when you cannot visit officially. Right. So during an official visit, the college will pay for transportation to and from the college for the prospect, for their lodging, 3 meals per day for the parents and for the prospect. Right. So it doesn't matter if you're visiting a school, you have mutual interest with them. You're out in, say it's Texas or Florida. The school, again, if there's mutual interest and you're a qualifier and they really want you, right, and it's a scholarship program, they will pay for your transportation back and forth just for the college visits. Okay. The only expense a college-bound student athlete may receive from a college during an unofficial visits are maybe 3 tickets to a home sporting event. So maybe a football game, basketball game, baseball game, whatever sporting event is going on. Again, you want to see what that environment is like as well. Okay. So then once you go see the schools, that's going to be the funnest part of this. Okay. Because you're going to get courted. They're going to treat you like a king if you're really good, or a queen, right? And it's funny because I promise you, your first day of school, they're not going to treat you the same way. Once they get you, it's not going to happen like that. So enjoy that moment, okay? But know you are there on business, all right? Take as many notes as you can. Have a list of things you would like to hear about from the school that you're going to spend the next 4 to 5 years at. All right, check them off as you go through the process. Be objective, but also allow the feelings you have to take hold. And remember, when it comes to an unofficial visit, unofficial visit is not paid for by the college, but you can go on as many of those as you want, as long as it's within the periods that the NCAA is, if it's not in a dead period, okay? But who pays for those? You do. So make sure you do the process for each school that you visit, okay? Take some time. It's a big decision. You want to relax, all right? You have some critical thinking skills. You want to pray, like I said, talk to your family, talk to your coaches. And the bottom line is, will you be happy? Many times this is going to be your first experience away from your family environment, okay? So you got to make sure, will I be happy here? All right. Finally, say yes and enjoy the rest of your time in high school. All right. Most importantly, keep the grades up. All right. As fast as the decision was made, the decision can be taken away if your grades drop. You can't get accepted. You can't say, yeah, I made it, and then start to slack off a little bit. You don't want to do that. All right. Now, I wanted to share with you basically and this is as of, I think, 2018, the men's college varsity sport scholarship allotment for Division I and Division II, and some junior colleges as well. Okay, this is the allotment. So if you play basketball, right, and say like Division II basketball, they're giving you scholarships. They are allotted, those scholarship schools, at least 10 of those per year. Division I, 13, right? Now, I'm sorry, I said per year. It's not per year. That's basically for the program. So in some cases, it's really like 2.5 scholarships a year they might offer, something like that. Football, Division I has 85, and Division II has 63. All right. Division II, mostly like 36 scholarships, if that. Right. So sometimes, and I mean, if you do gymnastics, I mean, they're all here. Right. There's you got ice hockey, lacrosse, which is becoming very big in our area. Right. You got skiing, soccer. I'll give you a moment to look at some of these. Track and field, very big. All right. So, and then I also have one for the ladies as well. Carlos, in my closing, I'm just going to let them look at this one as well. All right. So college basketball for ladies, they offer 15 scholarships. And again, that's 15 for the entire program. So they might have like 3 freshmen, 3 sophomores, 3 juniors, maybe 3 seniors. They might have 3 walk-ons, So every year, maybe they might only have 3 or 4 scholarships available. Whatever graduated last year, then those will become available, for the new incoming freshmen coming in, right? Horseback riding, you got the equestrian, there's a bunch of different things, and you can get all that right from NCAA as well. So that pretty much concludes what I have here. And I'm going to turn it back over to you, Mr. Cotto or Mr. Crandall. Maybe one of you guys could speak on what the COVID modifications are for the testing.
Yes, thank you, Kayla, for your presentation. And again, thanks both groups, Brett as well as Mr. Crandall as well as Mr. Booker. I think the one thing, Mr. Gause, as you shared, the COVID piece, the impact last year was the waiver to the SAT and the ACT. And then London did speak a little bit around the Ps on the passing. At this current time for this year, they haven't provided that particular waiver. But we'll provide updates to that as we receive additional information. Those are the 2 major things that have been impacted around the COVID. Again, I want to thank Mr. Gause and thank both presenters, both groups, and the information that they provided, deeply just focusing on that of the academic piece and then that journey. I think for many of our athletes in this community, their dream is to play at that next level, if not play professionally. And I think what was provided today just speaks to what that work entails behind the scenes, starting as early as elementary school, building that foundation, that of the importance of learning and getting those grades prior to getting into middle school, and then attacking those courses in 8th grade to get 3 to 4 credits before you even move into high school. I do want to transition now into our panel discussion, and Mr. Booker will be the one facilitating the questions to the panel. But before we get started with the panel discussion, I'd like for each individual, so at this point, if I can have all of my panelists put on their screens. And as we get started, I'll name each panelist, and I want each panelist just to kind of share a little bit about themselves, what schools they went to within the district or even in this community, college, and then what they're currently doing. And I'll go right in order as I have them on the agenda. So I'm going to start with Dante Caruthers.
Hi, everybody. My name is Dante Carruthers. I'm from East High School in the city. After I was there, I went to a few junior colleges out in Texas, and then I played my way into getting a Division I offer at the University of Buffalo. And then I did 5 years there. I ended up getting my associates, bachelor's, and master's from UB. And then after my 5th year there, I went over to Germany, and that's where I'm about to head back soon. So I'm gonna do a year or 2 over there in Germany. So that was my path of where I was from.
Thank you, Dante. Next up is Anthony Colquitt.
Apologies, I'm driving to work, but my name is Anthony Colquitt. I went to Douglas High School. Well, it's Douglas now. Back then it was Northwest College Prep. Went on to go to Madai my freshman year, then 4 years at Fredonia University, where I got my bachelor's in sports management and minor in coaching. Then I went on to Canisius College to get my master's in athletic administration.
Thank you, Anthony. Next up, Devonta Higgins. Devonta, you're muted.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. I'm Devonta Higgins. I went to school at Leadership Academy for Young Men back in 2015. Left there, got myself a scholarship to Damon College in Buffalo. Didn't really like the coaching, how the coaching was over there, or the culture over there. Wasn't really focused. Left there, went to Mohawk Valley Community College for 3 semesters just to catch up on work and, get my experience on the basketball court. Left Mohawk and was recruited by Brockport College. Actually, Brockport was one of the schools first recruiting me when I was 18 in high school, but kind of was one of them naive kids was like, whoa, I'm going to get a scholarship. I don't want D3 schools, but ended up finding out that Brockport was definitely the place where I should have been in the first place. And yeah, that's just a little bit about my basketball and life journey.
Thank you, Devonta. Next up is Jasmine Haywood.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jasmine Haywood, graduated from Wilson Marion in 2009. Wasn't highly recruited. I was recruited by maybe one school, but academics was definitely my first and foremost of going to college. So went on to Clarkson University, graduated in 2013. I played basketball for 3 years there. Got a chance to study abroad for academics, but ended up playing with the school and traveling all through England as well during that experience. And right now I got my master's in sport administration from Canisius College as well. And right now I have a girls basketball training and mentorship program that I do here in Rochester, where we focus on just making sure that the ladies are leaders on and off the court. So we focus on, self-confidence and building those communication skills as well.
Thank you, Jasmine. Next up is Crystal Graham.
Hello, everyone. My name is Crystal. I graduated from Edison Tech back in 2009. Then I went on to the D2 college called Lake Erie in Painesville, Ohio. Transferred from there to University at Buffalo because I wanted to be closer to home. I got my bachelor's degree, and then I went to Roberts Wesleyan and got another bachelor's degree in teaching. I taught for 4 years pre-K, and now I'm currently a director at a child daycare center.
Thank you, Crystal. And last but not least, Aquashe Britton.
Hi, I like to be called Shy now, Shy Britton. I played 1 year at Franklin High School. I did 4 years, graduated from Greece Arcadia, where I then went to play Division I for Niagara University. I played 3 out of 4 years there and graduated with my bachelor's in sports management. Then I played 1 more year at Damon College to start my business administration. And then now I'm just coaching varsity at Gage Chi-Light High School.
Thank you, Shai. So I'm now going to turn it over to London, and he'll provide you with some questions. So London, it's all yours.
Thank you. I'd like to say thank you to all of you for coming and speaking with us. There's a lot of young minds that we potentially can impact just by having the conversations that I plan on having tonight. I've been able to follow some of your careers over their span and in higher ed, and it's truly been great to watch some of you grow athletically. But our first question, and I believe we can do popcorn, we can go in any which direction we want, but the first one goes to anybody willing to speak on what was one of the most difficult experiences during your recruitment process, like completing financial aid, communicating with coaches. What was just one?
I'll go. For me, it was just pretty much for financial aid, getting my mom information. She kind of just wanted to give it to me at her time when it's convenient for her. But financial aid is very important. That's how you get your package, and see how much you owe for the school, things like that. So for me, the difficult part was the financial aid part, getting my mom information.
Yeah. Piggybacking off of that, if nobody else is going. Yeah, I feel like that would be my biggest challenge was financial aid, was trying to figure that out, which scholarship is the best way to go versus academic scholarships, and like knowing the difference between academic scholarships and athletic scholarships. So that was my biggest challenge in the recruitment process because I wasn't a big recruit, so it was the financial aid part for me.
I like to speak on that also. I think my path was a little different from theirs. After junior college, I had a lot of offers from a lot of high majors and low majors and mid majors. So I think mine was trying to find a school that me and my family liked, not just for like the names and stuff like that. I had some real big schools, but I think I chose Buffalo just because of, the coaching and the style of play and stuff like that and the school. So I think the biggest thing is trying to find a bunch of coaches that you trust inside that process. So that was the biggest one for me.
Thank you. Thank you. That's great. Anybody else wanted to add?
Yeah, well, my biggest challenge was just communicating and trying to keep up with all the coaches, whether it be through phone calls or emails or all the letters, because they would contact high school coach or AAU coach. So it was just kind of trying to figure out what's what, but and also listening to everybody's opinions on where you should go. Like that was a battle also.
Thank you. Thank you. One thing I can definitely comment is add, I know a lot of our athletes can be timid, they can be shy, and sending an email to a coach can be a little worrisome because you might not know what to say. You don't want to spell anything wrong, that sort of thing. And the financial aid piece, you know, I didn't know I was poor growing up until it was time to fill out the financial aid stuff. Like I didn't know the money wasn't there until we actually had to write it down on paper. So I can definitely agree with a lot of those things. The second question kind of addresses when you were being recruited by different colleges, did you have a chance to visit? So Coach Gause talked about that visit and what the feeling can be like, and that official visit when they might fly you out and ask you to come stay on campus for the weekend. Did either of you have that opportunity, or did you just have a visit that came in a different manner?
I'll go. I mean, at high school, I visited about four or five different schools, and I knew I wanted to go somewhere where it's kind of like a more urban and city-like feeling for me, because I come from a city of Rochester, growing up on the Upper West Side. So I was looking for people of my color, people who kind of like had the same interests as me, people who like went through a lot of things I went through or grew up how I grew up. So for instance, I wanted to visit at Mansfield, and that just wasn't like my choice. Mansfield University, it was very like country, one of everything out there. I'm like, okay, I need a corner store so I can get a juice or something like that. They don't have that. I'm like, nah, it's over. I'm out. So I visited there. Then my last visit was Damon College, and I really liked Buffalo a lot. And I also was going there while some of our former players was there. Torrance Dyke, he went to East. Supreme Hanley went to East Ridge. Deion Hamilton went to Greece Athena. Jay Sarkis, Jeff Redband. So I was like, nah, like this is this is where I want to be at. These are my guys. You know, I know them very well. I grew up with them. So, you know, when I went on my visit, it kind of like trapped me because they let me go during like, you know, spring concert time. I'm like, oh man, this is great. Like I've seen everything. Everybody see me. People asking questions, who's that? And I'm like, nah, this is where I want to be. So I remember the next day I called a coach, like, coach, I'm ready to sign. Where I sign at? Like, where's the paper at? So I guess that would be like my biggest thing is just, you know, like that, like noticing where you at and what type of environment you want to be around and the people you are be around, because people you're around are like very important, I would say.
For me, I visited colleges, but it was never like an official visit. So I visited colleges, like you said, at the same time where it was like a big weekend. Like Fredonia, I'll say, since I don't go there anymore, like that would be our biggest weekend. We would get recruits up there. Would be like, it's called multicultural weekend, and we will always try to get recruits to come up there when we know it's going to be like a bunch of events going on. Where any other weekend or any other time a recruit come up there, like the school is just regular school, but they try to get kids to come up there when they know it's going to be like an exciting weekend. Like you said, they came up there in that spring weekend, and I personally know about that, so I don't blame you for that easily. And I feel like that's how colleges, like, it's good to start getting kids to notice like the difference between that, like going on a visit during a normal school day versus when they know something's going to happen or a big game is coming up, like a homecoming game or something. Mm-hmm. Like every day is not homecoming at any school.
Thank you all for speaking to that. It's important that you know, our up and coming, you know, scholar athletes recognize that visits can be important, and although they may not all be official visits, in many ways can you visit a college campus. The RCSD has numerous amounts of opportunities and programs that we definitely want to reach out and latch on to in terms of Upward Bound or Liberty, like numbers of programs that we can just say, is there a chance to get me on campus here doing this in a number of ways. This can get 10th graders, 8th graders even on a campus like Roberts Wesleyan, you know, at 14 years old, seeing what it's like before their first official visit. So thank you all for speaking to that. My next follow-up question talks about what are the expected time commitments of a student athlete? So the vibe I've gotten, we've all participated at different levels and at different times. So when looking at D1, D2, and D3, and even junior college, what are some of those expectations for time?
Tay, you got this one, Tay.
I would say the time for D1 commitment is pretty is
Oh, you're
Yo, mute.
Oh, sorry, but
You good.
I would say for the commitment on the D1 level side that your choice can't take too long. I would say just because it's a lot of people that, you know, a lot of coaches will give out your offer fast. Not saying if like you're not like a top 25 or top 30 player in the country or something, you'll probably always have it. But if you're, you know, one on the back end, you know, you get an offer, you know, off a game or something like that, I would say the time frame is slim, probably like a month or two, if that, depending on if you're a senior or you're a transfer or something like that. Mine took kind of long. I think mine took like 3-4 months, just because, you know, towards the end when guys commit, higher levels tend to start throwing offers at guys that got major offers and stuff like that. So a lot of high majors tried to come at the end when I was getting ready to commit. So that kind of shakes things up a little bit at that point of time, but just staying true to, you know, the coaching staff and stuff like that who was there from the beginning. So it was pretty tough. It was pretty tough, but the time frame is very, very slim. I don't know how it is at the D2 or D3 level, but
Dante, if you can, real quick, this is Mr. Gause. Share your in-season day-to-day schedule as a student athlete, and how does that compare? You know, D1, how does that compare to the junior college you came from?
The junior college I went to was called Indian Hills. We were a top 3 program in the country. I believe it still is. But my schedule at Buffalo, I will wake up at 5:30, do what I have to do. I will have weights by 6:30. From 6:30 to 7:30 was weights. Then I have class at 8, from 8 to 10, and then I have treatment from 10 to 11, practice from 11:30 to 2:30, and then I will have study hall from 3 to 5, and then night class from 6 to 9, and then you had to get in the gym on your own from whenever you get out of night class and do your homework and still have to go. So I probably started my day at 5:30 and then get home to 11:30, 12, depending on if I go to the library or not. Sometimes that'd be longer. So that
Hey,
was
Tay, I ain't hear you say about nothing about eating.
Food comes in the locker room and stuff like that. So you just grab and go. So pretty much y'all can walk through the SU and stuff like that, grab something on the way to class. So, you know, stuff like that, or the vending machines or something like that. So quick, or you just pack a lunch. I pack the lunch a lot. So
it's never really time to really sit. It's never really time to really sit down and eat a good meal. Like, take your time. I know it. I know. I already know.
You gotta grab and go. You gotta grab and go. So that was probably the tough part, was trying to find the best nutrition for you instead of getting McDonald's and Wendy's and stuff like that. So
in-season schedule can be quite a task when looking at time management. And I think talking about that kind of like puts that in the forefront. That's something that can be shown across all levels of competition, whether it's D1, D2, or D3. The schedule in season can be very demanding. My follow-up question now kind of I'm looking for an answer from everybody on this, because it can be different for most, but this is a powerful question. So what was it like juggling both school and athletics in high school compared to college? And I think I want to hear from Crystal first, if she's ready.
So I'm gonna say with high school, it probably was more free compared to college, and I say that because college is like more time management, I feel. Um, and I think it was college also was more challenging, the schoolwork, the workload. So I think that was another big juggling piece there too, because you really had to also, and like in high school you had to stay on top of your work, but in college it's like you have to stay on top of your work like 10 times as much because of the workload given to you. So it was kind of like a struggle because if you didn't, time manage yourself as much in college than you do in high school, you'll get far behind. So it was a struggle, college compared to high school.
Colquitt, how would you say it was juggling both school and athletics in high school compared to college?
High school, well, I mean, you remember how our school was. It wasn't that challenging, honestly. School came like natural to me, and again, I wasn't like a D1 athlete, so I knew for me, I had to take school more seriously because that way I can get a scholarship to academics versus I'm not getting a full ride anywhere. But once I got to college, that time commitment is similar to what Dante was saying, but not as much. Like we would have a practice here and there, morning practice, but it would never be like a treatment on your own time. It was your classes, you have one practice, and then like it was basically up to you. So for like college, you had more time to handle your schoolwork and balance out sports versus high school. But again, that's from D3. I can't speak for D1 because I was not up at 5:30 at D3.
Shai, any thoughts on what it was like juggling athletics in high school and school in high school compared to college?
Yeah, well, high school was definitely a lot more easier. I had a schedule similar to Dante, so I was not prepared walking into college with the workload and, weight room, 6 in the morning, then class practice, all in between. I mean, we did have study halls on the road and stuff, but there's so many things in between that made it a lot more difficult to stay focused.
Thank you. Jasmine, how about yourself?
I would say that high school was very structured and that I knew practice was going to be at the same time pretty much every day. But then when I got to college, I was a Division III athlete. There was so much flexibility in our schedule, and some other former student athletes have alluded to it, where there wasn't not a lot of mandatory stuff, but there was a lot of voluntary stuff. And those voluntary things were mandatory. So you had to kind of fit things in your schedule to make sure that you were putting in the work on your own to be able to perform on the team with those voluntary workouts. So in season, it was about 20 hours a week commitment, but I feel like just high school was just more structured and you knew what to expect, but college kind of, with it being you're focusing on academics as much as you can, and then you're playing because you like to play. But it is definitely still in a commitment on a Division III level.
Thank you. And Devonta, I'd like to definitely ask your opinion because you were at Leadership, which is an all boys high school, but at a time where you guys are really good. Like you had ball players, and then you transitioned into a institution where it was almost like you're walking into another family atmosphere because you knew so many people. And at that time, the institution was also very good at the D2 level. So what was that like trying to juggle being doing school and being athletic at a high school versus, doing school and being athletic at a college like that?
Well, I mean, for me, it was different because I just couldn't escape my mom. My mom was really like at every high school I went to, like from 7th grade to 12th grade. So it was like wherever I'm going, if I'm trying to skip or if I'm trying to do anything bad, it's like I'll run into her or someone tells her on a radio, or so it's like, nah, like I'm chilling, like I'm just, I'm gonna be a good guy. So that was kind of like my backbone. She just made sure I was always on point, always stay focused. Like if I was in trouble, she wouldn't, just take my side because I'm her son. She would, see both sides and then see what would be the best possible outcome. How the consequence be. But that was a big part of my thing too. But I would say, leadership was a different school. It was an all boys school, so it was a lot of guys there with a lot of different egos. So any day could be a different day. You never know what you was coming to school and seeing. So I just try to be a good guy. Just be respectful to everybody that was there, and just be a good person, because that's what we need, in our community. But I would say going from high school to Damon, it was a totally different outcome for me. It was totally different. I'm like, the curriculum there was different. I didn't know what they were talking about sometimes. I didn't know what this was, and I would say what kind of got me was just it wasn't diverse there at all. I'm in the classroom with people that's not my color, that's just doesn't understand me or what I'm going through, or they didn't really care to inform me about things that was going on or help me out. So that my transition was really hard because it was difficult. The curriculum was hard, and it was like, damn, I gotta play basketball, I gotta go practice in the morning, I gotta do all this, and it's definitely, I would say it's definitely hard to have a good practice or have a good game when you have so much off the court stuff in your mind. So that was my my juggling. It was pretty difficult because just that whole transition was difficult for me. So
Thank you, because that's important. Walking into those spaces sometimes for the first time and not necessarily being felt or understood. I have two final questions, and this next question kind of looks at it's kind of asking you to be a little nostalgic and to look back. But if you could do it all over again, what would you do differently in high school?
what would I do different in high school? I mean, I guess it'll go back to the NCAA Clearinghouse, because even though I had a great counselor, and her name was Callie Andler. She was tremendous, amazing. I guess I didn't ask her what kind of qualifications I needed earlier enough. I guess I waited till maybe my end of junior, or maybe beginning of senior year. But if I would have gotten into about 10th grade or 9th grade, that would have been different. I would have definitely been more prepared to take those courses. Because I feel like I was good enough to get a D1 scholarship, but I guess during that time we didn't have all this new recruit media stuff going on, all that top flight, whatever you want to call it, recording and stuff like that. So we didn't really have outlets to get us out there. And I feel like back then, if you were in 6'9" or 6'10", going to Bishop Kearney or going to Aquinas, then it was hard for schools to find good talent. They didn't want to come to city. Yeah, go to East. Yeah, and live under the East culture, East history. But it wasn't oh, we're not going to leadership trial at high school. Why? When we can go see Riddell Freeman and Thomas Bryant and Antoine Anderson play at Bishop Kearney against New Rochelle or somebody. So it was that was one of the things. I wish we had more exposure, and definitely to see the schools, because we have good talent. And the stereotype is, okay, if you go to city school, then his grades are not maybe good enough to earn a scholarship to our school. Well, maybe that's not the case. You just haven't really looked into the person or the player. So
Thank you. It's important to recognize that there are times where our CSD students may not benefit from the same privilege that others may have when participating in athletics, and that's important to acknowledge. But Jasmine, so when looking back on your opportunities and how your high school experience went, what is one thing you would change?
I would say just knowing about the process sooner. I believe I got my first look towards the end of my senior year, but by that time, my parents were already set on me going to college for academics. So I think if they knew about the possibility in the process sooner, then maybe it would have been a possibility to go to college for athletics on an athletic scholarship. So I know the girls' side is very different than on the boys' side, but as Devonta mentioned, the exposure, all the things that are around now, camps and clinics and free this, like a lot of this stuff wasn't around when I was a basketball player. So I think we're doing a great job of offering those opportunities now for the next generation.
Shai, I'd like to come to you next, only because you have the wonderful opportunity of working with high school athletes right now at the moment, being at Gage Shiloh. So knowing that you're guiding high school athletes in the current moment, what is one thing that you felt you would have done differently in high school?
Well, I didn't know about I could get a scholarship or anything like that either. Like these kids, like they mentioned already, they have all these different opportunities now. And I really wasn't thinking about college or the process. I just know I was playing basketball. But like once I did, go to Greece Arcadia, I made the move to Greece Arcadia. And then that, we started talking about those things. I'm like, okay, all these schools are looking at me now. I had no idea. Then I did have a great counselor to help my mom through the financial aid process and everything like that. But I would just say, also, I think I should have trained a lot harder in high school. I should have hit the weight room a lot sooner before I got to college, because then I would be ready to step right in, through preseason and those things like that. But yeah, I don't know.
Thank you. I appreciate it. From all of our panelists, this last question, because I know we're almost coming close to the end of our time here. One thing that I definitely want to ask pertains to the future of athletes and where you were compared to where you started, because that all plays a role. So the question is, what was your plan, right, or your thoughts about your future during the recruiting process? And how did that play a role? How did the institutions you attended play a role in that compared to where you are now? So once again, what thoughts did you have about your future moving forward coming out of high school? And how did your institutions that you attended and your successes and your lessons that you had help guide those next steps compared to and pertaining to where you are right now? And I'll go to Dante.
I would say inside the recruitment process, my goal was to be a pro. Whether last year when I played in the G League, trying to go up, or just be a pro overseas somewhere. So I wanted to see which school had the best chance for me to make it to March Madness, and then show what I could do on a big screen and stuff like that. So winning had a lot to do with that. And I think the main thing was just trying to help my mom out. We come from the city school district, so there's not that much money around and stuff like that. So that was just the main thing. How can I help my mom here? Which school could help me have the best chance to help my mom further on down the line? So I think Buff was a great place for that, because everybody got everything they needed. My coach now is at Bama, where he's the head coach there, and I have a lot of pro friends that was seniors with me. So some play overseas, some play for the Nets. So I think it just worked out for everybody.
Got it. Colquitt.
My mindset coming out of high school was, I don't know, like everybody else's. I thought I was going to the league coming out of high school. I thought I was going to be a walk-on somewhere, and it was just going to happen overnight like that. Obviously, that's not the case. I was a walk-on at my school, but I feel like that helped me, because when you get to college, like if you're not on a scholarship, like if you're not on a scholarship, you got to work for everything. Like you got to work as hard as everybody else on the team. You got to work as hard to keep up in classes. And I feel like that's gotten me to where I'm at right now, because I'm not expecting things to be handed out to me. Like I was expecting to get a scholarship because I knew how to play basketball. Like I'm not expecting a handout like the perfect job right now. I know I got to work at level A to get to level B or whatever with anything. So I felt like that's the biggest thing I've taken away from the whole recruitment thing in college is the mindset's changed completely from thinking things were handed out, going into college and coming out of college, realizing like, that's not how things work. That's not how life works.
Got it, got it. Jasmine.
Hi, sorry about that. It was a parent call for my program. I would say because I was not highly recruited, I kind of look back when I went through my experiences in college. I was also a walk-on at a Division III school, but all the players there had been recruited in some form to come there to play basketball, which I was very unaware that happens. So I was the only walk-on the team. So just like Anthony had to work for just a little bit of playing time. But I would say basketball played such a huge part. Like when I went overseas to study abroad, the most comfortable thing I can do was go to the gym and play basketball. And that's how I met somebody on the team where I was able to try out and begin traveling across England playing basketball. So that experience just kind of proves to me that you don't have to be a Division I athlete to continue to play basketball. So through my program, I instill that into the girls as well, is that, you know, you may not go Division I, but if you go Division III or Division II, it's still great athletes, still very competitive, and basketball can still take you somewhere. So that's my tidbit on
that. Let's see.
I'll go. My thoughts going into college, pretty much like everyone else's, was to become a pro, an Olympian. But then I kind of lost sight at that. So I just kind of gave it my all while being in college. However, being a track athlete, I learned so much from my D1 coaches that to where it made me want to become a coach and go back to the city and help out the youth and just the kids in the city in general. So just everything I learned from being at the Institute at UB, it taught me a lot. So now I'm able to teach my athletes and instill those things in them that the coaches had once instilled in me. And by me being a D2 and a Division I athlete, I'm able to give them my experience and to kind of help them out, to kind of picture how it will be at the school level. And also with the practices, I'm able to give them, you know, some things that I was taught in college to kind of help them prepare to go onto that journey rather than always like high school workouts, if that makes sense. So it was to give back, and it helped out a lot because I coach at Edison Tech, been there for 4 years, about 4 or 5 years now. So that's something I took from it.
Thank you. Shy.
My thoughts coming in were really just to play basketball. And, you know, I thought I was going to play right away. That didn't happen. So I had to put in the hard work. I ended up starting as a freshman in the conference games. But I just wish I knew then what I knew now as far as what to expect coming in. And that's something I can teach my girls at Gause Chi-Life, because I do have a few potential D1 players there as well.
Thank you. Is there anybody else we haven't heard from?
I would say, yeah. I mean, my whole thing was, okay, I'm going here. I'm probably not going to play over, you know, Torrance Dyke. I was there. You know, he was a great player there. So that was kind of my position. I was playing. So I was like, you know what, you know, I'll take whatever they give me, any minutes. You know, I wasn't really expecting to get redshirted my first year, just because I thought I was better than, you know, good enough to play. But you know, coach had other options for me that year. But I definitely wanted to, you know, stay at that school and, you know, play. But I feel like, you know, once I redshirted that 1 year, I think I kind of like lost like the love of the game for a little bit, just because he took like my confidence away, I would say, you know, from not playing. So that made me not really like, you know, want to be there as much. So, you know, I started just, you know, slacking in school just because I wasn't playing basketball. But I would say I found it once I left there and really realized opportunity that I just messed up. It kind of brought me back on track. And after that, I knew, okay, well, I want to play, you know, basketball overseas and maybe one day go pro. So, you know, until then, I got to do the steps that's necessary for me to get there, which is, being a good student and being good in classes. So that was kind of like my trigger that kind of clicked in my head for me. So that was my whole thing. But, I mean, I've been grateful enough to, get another chance at SUNY Brockport where I'm at now. And when I transferred there, I kind of let everyone know, like, yo, I'm coming from a D2 program. I'm not not even supposed to be here. So I'm coming here to take spots, whatever I gotta do to get on the court ASAP, because I don't got no time to waste. I'm already only got 2.5 years left. So I'm coming here just to, get right to business and trying to win a championship for us. So y'all can get to be down for me or, or not. So, and some players you'll get some players that's only down for the ride because, we're winning and, everything's enjoyable and great. But then you'll get some players that really want, really want to win and really want to battle with you on each and every night. So that was my whole aspect.
Thank you. So before we get out of here, I do have one last ask of you all, because you have done an amazing job so far. But I know me personally, because I've traveled down this road, and I know there will be people in the future and in the upcoming days and weeks who will go back and watch this. If I could give advice to any upcoming RCSD athlete or any athlete in general, my advice would be to put yourself in a position to earn things. That would be my advice. It's so simplistic, it's so honest, but just put yourself in a position to earn things. That's my advice. So my next question is, like, for all of you, what is one thing you would give to one of our athletes to say, hey, if I give you anything, if I teach you anything, here's this.
For me, I will tell the athletes to take full advantage of the many different resources out there to help them along the journey.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna piggyback off of Crystal's, because there's so much stuff that these kids can use right now that I feel like was right there in front of my eyes when I was in school and didn't even realize. So take advantage of the resources you have would be mine too as well.
For mine, I would just say to open your ears and listen. I know many people from East that told me things that now I remember being older, some janitors, teachers, just everybody, just listen. And I still remember some stuff from Mr. Cotto telling me stuff back in 39 school days. So just to listen. That's what I would say, to listen.
I would say be disciplined and put in the hard work.
I would say just surround yourself with people that are like-minded like you, people that have the same goal, same ambition as you, because, it's easy to be around people that don't really care about your dreams or care about your aspirations and don't really want you to make it. But yeah, I would say just surround yourself around people that have the same aspirations as you.
Jasmine?
I would just say just be committed to make a difference. Like if that's, in around you or like in your game, in school, just be committed to be the best version of yourself.
Thank you. So one last time, I would love to say thank you to all of you who participated tonight. I believe it'll truly make a difference for anybody who has the opportunity to watch this. And I will pass it back over to Dr. Cotto.
Yes, I mean, this was powerful, extremely powerful. I mean, even in closing, the advice that you've provided to our students that have the same dreams that you've fulfilled at this current time, and some of you are still pursuing further those dreams. I mean, what's powerful here is all of you carry bachelor's and master's degrees. You are products of the Rochester City School District. We are here to change this narrative and what's kind of shared within our community as a whole. And the 6 of you, along with Mr. Booker, are exemplars of what we have in this community. We're rich in resources. I do want to strongly share with the group and those that are listening, please connect with your athletic directors at your building. Please connect with your counselors. Please reach out to those that have had an impact in your life. as you kind of traveled in your own journeys, and I'm speaking of those that have played youth sports, middle school sports, recreation, hold us accountable. Hold us accountable to help you fulfill that dream, and make sure that you connect with the resources that we have within our community to get you there. But it starts now. And I think for those that are listening that are in elementary school, build that foundation now, and that of the discipline to learning and having those study habits, that work ethic, and that of your athletic ability. If you're an athlete and you do well and you can maintain B's and A's, then there's opportunities. There's doors that'll open for you as you transition from high school to college. But you got to hit those books early on. You got to have those habits instilled in you early. And I can't thank enough the group that has presented for us today, the panel. And we will look to record. I mean, this is recorded, so we will be sharing this across the district as a whole. We're looking to do more of these, even with a focus at the elementary level as well. But again, thank you all. I wish you all the best in your future endeavors. And if we can be of any support, please let us know. And that's the closure for today. So thanks again for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.